The great hall of the Thornwood Pack glowed with amber torchlight, and the air was thick with tension. Tonight was no ordinary gathering. Packs from every corner of the Northern Territories had come together for one purpose: to help choose a new beta advisor for the Alpha King. But few in that hall knew the truth. The Alpha King himself was already among them, hidden in plain sight. Kael Ashgard never announced his arrivals. He had learned long ago that people showed their truest selves when they believed no one important was watching. So tonight, dressed like any other guard, wearing no crown and no mark of rank, he stood quietly near the back of the hall, arms crossed, hood low over his eyes, observing everything. Near the front of the crowd, a group of young pack members whispered and snickered. Among them stood Ren, an Omega who had been blind since birth. He hadn't wanted to come. He never enjoyed being paraded around for other people's amusement, but his packmates had all but dragged him there, laughing the entire way. "This will be fun," one of them murmured, nudging his friend. "Let's see the blind Omega. Guess which one is the king." Ren said nothing. He was used to their jokes. He had grown up hearing his own value measured only by what he could not do. No one asked what he could do instead. At the center of the room, an elder wolf named Bramwell called the hall to order. He explained the test that would take place before the formal selection of the new beta. A series of pack members, dressed similarly, would walk forward one at a time, and the visiting guests would try to guess who among them was the true Alpha King in disguise. It was meant to be a light-hearted way to open the evening, a game before the serious matters began. One by one, warriors stepped forward, puffing their chests, trying to appear regal. Each time, laughter rippled through the crowd, as the guesses were revealed to be wrong. It became clear that the Alpha King's identity was harder to guess than anyone expected. Then it was Ren's turn. He felt hands push him gently toward the center of the room. He heard muffled laughter behind him, whispers already mocking him before he even took a single step. "Let's see the blind Omega find him," someone said, snickering. Ren stood still for a moment, feeling the weight of everyone's attention. His heart pounded, but not from fear. It was something else, an old irritation, quiet and controlled, at being treated like entertainment rather than a person. He lifted his chin. Then, slowly, he took a breath. Most people in the room assumed his blindness made him weak, helpless, someone who needed guidance simply to cross a room. What they did not know was that Ren's sense of smell was unlike anything most wolves possessed. Scents were not just background noise to him. They were entire stories. He could smell fear, excitement, sickness, old wounds, distant lands, days-old rain, and hundreds of other details layered together like ink on parchment. He began walking, not with hesitation, but with quiet purpose. The room fell into a strange hush as he passed the first false alpha, a broad-shouldered guard trying to stand tall and confident. Ren didn't slow down. He passed the second, a warrior with an intentionally intimidating stance. Ren's steps didn't waver. He passed the third, someone clearly trying to imitate authority through posture alone. Still, Ren continued. Murmurs spread through the crowd. Some guests leaned forward, intrigued despite themselves. Others scoffed quietly, assuming the boy was simply lost or confused. Then Ren stopped. He stood directly in front of a hooded figure near the back of the room, the same figure who had been standing silently, arms crossed, watching everything unfold. The room went utterly still. Ren lowered himself to one knee, bowing his head respectfully. "You reek of iron, ash, and an old wound that never fully healed," he said, his voice steady and clear enough for the entire hall to hear. "No one carries that scent by accident. You are not a guard. You are him. You are the Alpha King." For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. The silence stretched so long that even the crackling torches seemed to pause. Then Kael Ashgard lifted his hood. Gasps spread through the room like wildfire. The very guests who had laughed at Ren's participation moments earlier now stared at him in stunned disbelief. Several exchanged wide-eyed glances, realizing they had jeered at the one person who succeeded where every warrior in the hall had failed. Bramwell, the elder overseeing the ceremony, cleared his throat awkwardly, clearly not expecting the exercise to end this way. "Well," he said, voice slightly unsteady, "it seems We have our answer. Kale studied Ren for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, instead of simply confirming what everyone already knew, he asked a question that caught the entire hall off guard. How long have you known who I truly am, in every room I've entered? Ren hesitated only briefly before answering honestly. For over a year, my lord. I first noticed your scent during the Harvest Festival last autumn. I recognized it again during the border patrols in winter, and again at the spring trade gathering. I never said anything, because no one ever asked what I could sense. They only ever asked about what I could not see. A ripple of quiet shock moved through the crowd. Even Kale seemed momentarily taken aback by the honesty and simplicity of the answer. For a long moment, the Alpha King said nothing. Then he stepped forward, closing the distance between them, and reached out a hand to help Ren rise to his feet. Stand, Kale said. You have nothing to kneel for tonight. Ren rose slowly, uncertain of what was happening, but sensing something significant shifting in the air around him. Kale turned to address the hall, his voice carrying easily across the silent room. Tonight, I came here disguised among my own guards to observe the true character of those gathered. Not their performance, not their titles, but who they truly are when they believe no one important is watching. I expected clever tricks. I expected warriors trying to impress me with strength or cunning. He paused, glancing toward Ren. Instead, I found someone who has quietly recognized the truth for over a year and said nothing, not out of fear, but because no one valued what he had to offer enough to ask. Murmurs of astonishment spread through the crowd once more. I called this gathering to select a new beta advisor, Kale continued. Someone to stand beside me, someone whose judgment I could trust completely. I have watched dozens of candidates present themselves through strength, ambition, and clever words tonight. But true judgment isn't about outward performance. It's about perception, seeing what others miss, understanding what others dismiss. He turned fully toward Ren. You have shown me, in the span of a few moments, more insight and honesty than anyone else in this hall tonight. From this moment forward, you will serve as my personal tracker and trusted advisor. The announcement rippled through the crowd like a thunderclap. Several guests exchanged stunned looks. The very packmates who had dragged Ren to the gathering earlier, mocking him the entire way, now stood frozen in disbelief, their earlier laughter replaced by wide-eyed silence. One of them, a young wolf named Torin, who had been particularly vocal in his teasing earlier, opened his mouth as if to say something, then quickly closed it again, clearly thinking better of drawing attention to himself. Bramwell, still slightly flustered by the unexpected turn of events, cleared his throat once more. My lord, are you certain? The position of beta advisor typically requires... I am certain, Kale interrupted, his tone calm but final. Strength of instinct and honesty of character outweigh the mockery of rank. I have made my decision. The elder wolf bowed his head respectfully, not daring to argue further. Ren stood quietly amid the stunned silence, his heart pounding, still processing what had just happened. Moments ago, he had been dragged into the hall as a source of entertainment, expected to embarrass himself before the gathered nobility. Now, he stood beside the Alpha King himself, chosen not despite his blindness, but because of the unique perception it had given him. As the shock in the room began to settle, quiet conversations resumed, though the tone had shifted entirely. No longer was Ren discussed with mockery or pity. Instead, whispers of admiration and curiosity spread through the crowd. How did he do it? One guest whispered to another. I've never seen anyone identify the Alpha King so quickly, another murmured. Not even our own trackers managed it. Kale placed a firm hand on Ren's shoulder, guiding him gently toward the front of the hall. Walk with me, he said quietly. His voice meant only for Ren to hear. There is much I wish to discuss with you. As they walked together, the crowd parted respectfully, many bowing their heads as they passed. The very same packmates who had jeered at Ren earlier now lowered their eyes, unable to meet his gaze. Later that evening, after the formal gathering had concluded, and most of the guests had departed, Kale and Ren sat together in a quieter chamber overlooking the moonlit training grounds. The tension of the earlier ceremony had faded, replaced by a calmer, more contemplative atmosphere. You could have told someone, Kale said thoughtfully, breaking the comfortable silence between them. Even just once, it might have changed how others treated you. Ren considered the question carefully before answering. Perhaps, he admitted. But I've learned that most people only listen when it benefits them to do so. I didn't want to be believed simply because I claimed something. I wanted it to be undeniable, if it ever came to light at all. Kale studied him for a long moment, clearly impressed by the depth of thought behind the response. That patience is rare, he said. Most would have sought recognition immediately. Recognition without understanding means very little, Ren replied simply. I would rather be respected for what I can truly offer, not merely tolerated because of a title. A faint, approving smile touched Kale's lips. Though Ren couldn't see it, he could sense the subtle shift in the Alpha King's scent, a warmth mixed with quiet respect. You have a wisdom far beyond your years, Kale said. It seems my instincts about you were correct. Over the following weeks, word of what had happened in the Great Hall spread far beyond the Thornwood Pack. Neighboring packs whispered stories of the blind Omega, who had identified the Alpha King through scent alone, outperforming seasoned warriors and trackers alike. Some doubted the tale until they met Ren themselves, quickly understanding the truth behind the growing legend. Within the Thornwood Pack, attitudes shifted dramatically. Those who once mocked Ren for his blindness now sought his counsel, recognizing the depth of perception he possessed. Torin, the young wolf who had once led much of the teasing, approached Ren privately one evening, offering a quiet, genuine apology for his past behavior. I didn't understand, Torin admitted, his voice filled with quiet regret. I judged you before ever truly knowing you. Ren, ever thoughtful, offered a small, understanding smile. Most people do, he said simply. It's easier to judge what's visible than to understand what isn't. As the seasons changed, Ren settled comfortably into his new role, his unique perception proving invaluable time and again. He identified hidden dangers before they threatened the pack, sensed the true intentions of visiting diplomats long before their words revealed anything, and became an indispensable presence within Kale's inner circle. Yet despite his newfound status, Ren remained humble, never seeking recognition for its own sake. He understood, perhaps better than anyone else in the Thornwood Pack, that true worth wasn't something to be announced or demanded. It simply needed the right moment, the right person willing to listen, to finally be seen. And though Ren could not see the world around him in the way others did, he had already proven, in the most undeniable way possible, that true perception went far beyond sight alone. The Alpha King, once an unknowable figure hidden behind disguises and tests, had finally found someone who truly understood him, not through appearance, not through clever words, but through quiet, honest perception. And within the walls of the Thornwood Pack, the story of the blind Omega, who had named the Alpha King by scent alone, became not just a legend, but a lasting reminder that true strength often lies hidden in the places people least expect to look.